Welcome to Couples Talk. Tonight we have an interesting topic, one that we don't talk about enough, even though the world is polarized when it comes to sex. Sex in marriage seems to be a taboo at times. We do it, but we don't talk about it. Why is that? If you're here and you haven't liked and followed the channel, then you need to do that. Click that like button, subscribe to the channel, and click that notification bell. So when we post more videos like this or go live, you will be notified. So we have some couples that we need to talk to about this topic of how to enjoy sex in marriage. So we want to invite our couples at this time, and we would like to say good evening. I'm going with the titles that they have used. I don't know if these are pseudonyms. I don't know if they're tracked by the FBI and they need to keep their name covered. So I'm going to say good evening to Carlos and Apples. I have
Good
a
evening, good
feeling
evening, good evening.
Apple, and who's Carlos here, the apple of my eye, and I could see it in Carlos' eyes.
Glowing. Yeah, he's glowing.
Right? And good evening to the Barrows. Thank you so much for joining us. Carlos, Apples, when you hear about the topic of enjoying sex in marriage, I mean, is this something that you're ready to talk about?
Ready or not, we're here. Years of marriage, couple Carlos and Apples. I mean, 10 years of marriage. I think they have enough experience to share. Don't you think so?
Definitely.
Yes.
And the Barrows, how are you feeling? And Charlene just spilled the beans about Carlos that they've been married now for 10 years. How long have you guys been married?
16 years. This year, July, will actually be 17 years. So 16 and a half.
So you see, our viewers, you're getting live experience from experienced couples. So have no fear.
All right. So, Charlie, let us jump into this topic. It's interesting that we're looking at how to enjoy sex in marriage. For many persons, it should be a no-brainer that if you're married, you're just you must be enjoying sex. Many may not know, but you're a counselor by profession. Is it that there is still challenges out there where persons are not actually enjoying sex in their marriage?
Interesting enough, I've actually had some couples or even individuals came to me and they would say that the sex isn't good. But then when I ask them like questions like, what have you guys done? Have you talked about this? Have you told me like this? And the response would be, but I thought after all this time he would know what I like. But then I would always remind them communication is good for marriages. If you don't say what you like, he's not a mind reader. He can't know what you like.
That's such an interesting topic. And just speaking from a man's perspective, we hear a lot of things on the block. I mean, when the guys talk on the block, we think what the other experienced guys are talking about is Bible facts. Only to grow up later on and realize, what he was saying didn't make any sense. But we've heard that, and we've come into a lot of relationship with these misconceptions about sex and what's supposed to be good, what you're supposed to do, and we don't talk about it. We just assume if we talk about it, it means we don't know what we're supposed to know. So we're going ahead pretending that, yep, that's what's supposed to be happening, and we don't always have that open communication on the topic. So we're going to jump in. We have just a few questions that we're going to raise on this, and if you have a comment or statement, please share it in the comments. Even if we don't address it in this live, we will definitely look and respond to you or address it in another episode. So the first question, Charles, we want to touch here is, why is it important to understand your sexual needs as well as your partner? So start with the first one. What is important about understanding your sexual needs? And what does that mean?
A lot of times, as a woman, we don't understand our body. So it's kind of difficult to even explain what it is you're going through experiencing. But it's good to take time to know your body, to know your emotions. And if it is you don't know it automatically, do some research. Thank God for the internet. Now we can Google stuff. So you can type in simple keywords and it will actually give you some information in terms of what you're experiencing and how to respond. And if it is you're a little nervous, like some person write it, whisper it, send a text message to your spouse and say, I find this looks interesting. I like to try this. I actually like this different move. And I get a little excited and say, okay, I understand. I can appreciate it. And the other thing too is that while you're doing this, you might even get a better understanding of what he likes to do. So it's important to discuss, to talk, to express with each other what you like and dislike in order to have better sexual experiences.
I like that second part in regards to your partner. And it's good. And I like the first part. If your partner is thinking critically about what he or she enjoys about sex, when I ask the question, and it should be in a non-judgmental way. It should be in a way that is encouraging. There's no wrong answer here. Right? And it's very important that you really create an atmosphere where your partner can share it. And it's probably not the best time in the heated of the moment that's when you're trying to have this conversation. That's probably not the time. It's probably where you can actually be calm, collect, and it's not when you're trying to prepare in the middle of it to want to have this long therapy session. No. It's you're relaxed, you're in a good place, and you can say, honey, what do you like about this? Or if the person may not be comfortable sharing it, they don't know. Maybe you could even indicate, do you like it when I touch you here? Do you like it when I touch you here? Or so it gives some perspective so that you could both kind of share in that, and the persons know where you're coming from, especially if you indicate, I want you to have a great experience, and you're coming from that perspective, then it opens the door for the person to be more open and share with you. So I'm going to go over to Carlos and Apos. When it comes to this and any part of it, what do you think about this particular question? Why do you think it's important for you to understand your needs or your partner's needs?
I think it's important because you don't want to traumatize your partner, especially if it's your partner. You don't want to traumatize them. For example, kissing, right? I remember when I was with somebody before Carlos.
No, not me, eh?
And when kissing the person, he used his tongue a lot. And by the time we finished, my face was wet. I actually had to do this and do that, right? And I was traumatized by that. So when it to come to Carlos, I'm like, hey, when it comes to kissing, I want no tongue, because that experience traumatized me. And he respected that. And then maybe about 5 years, 6 years into marriage, I'm still more comfortable now using the whole tongue experience, right? So it is very important. That whole communication issue is important because you don't know what experience or expectations that person came in. You don't know what they had, because I was traumatized by the tongue. So having that communication, that conversation very early is important, because you want to enjoy yourself and you don't want to think back about your wet face during trying to enjoy yourself. So it's important.
We will jump over to the Barrows. Melina, what about you? I mean, why do you think it's important to understand your partner's sexual needs or even your needs?
All right, so pleasant evening, everyone. For me as an individual, I would look at it from the angle that there are two things. Because I am with that special person, I want that person to have a wonderful experience. And for them to have that wonderful experience, it also means that they will also want to reciprocate. Mm-hmm. So it is important to understand your needs and communicate that to your partner so that you all could help each other. You all can please each other. You all are able to work together to achieve that feeling or... Well, she said the word climax. Right? But at the end of the day, there's a certain level of intimacy with your partner as a couple. And at least how I look at it is you want what is best for her, and she will want what is best for you. So by you guys talking about it, because we talk about it.
True.
And even though sometimes I heard one, I think is Josh said, you might want to do it at the point in time, but we actually laugh and have fun.
Yep. before, during, and after.
Yeah. Because you don't know everything. I wouldn't know everything about Melly.
Yes.
And I wouldn't know everything about Johann, even though we've been married for almost 17 years, 16 and a half years.
I'm going to tell you something. She knows everything about me. Right?
You know, men don't always remember everything, even though you probably tell them. But at the same
time. And that is true.
But so
basically, you know the ins and outs of the of your better half.
Correct.
And at the end of the day, it is something that binds or joins both of you all together. I mean, you would have left your parents' home, gotten married, you all would have become one. And when they say become one flesh, it means that too. Yeah. So, in doing that, it is very important because at the end of the day, this also helps in terms of one is the covenant, yes, but two, it is that level of commitment, companionship, togetherness, bond that you all will continue to grow with. It's not something that is stationary or static. It is something that is dynamic and continues to expand as time goes on.
And sex is not just a slam bam, thank you, ma'am. Okay, sex in marriage, at least, you're not that I jump on, I do what to do, and I get my satisfaction and I go. It's two persons, as he said, coming together as one. So at the end of it, it's not just about procreation, it's not just about having fun and being satisfied, but it's also ensuring that the other partner leaves happy and you all are better off for it together. So understanding your needs, understanding his needs, and vice versa will only heighten the experience and make it better.
Watching these people are professionals, and
No.
So we're going into question 2. By this time, Carlos already know how to give advice because he has the experience, right? What advice would you give to a couple who has different sexual experiences or expectations? Carlos and Apples. I know Carlos knowing it. You just need to, Carlos, give the men some advice. Carlos, give the men and them some advice.
Carlos, you're putting you on the spot. So I'll bring you into the picture, Carlos. Talk to us. I mean, what advice would you? I mean, 10 years in, if you were to give advice to someone that's now getting into marriage, what would be one thing that you might advise them?
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mr. Carlos.
Well, my experience is first of all, you have to put God first in this entire marriage and let He lead out, because I mean, without Him, you can't think straight, right? You will never think straight. If you try to do everything on your own, you're gonna mess up. So I think you have to put Him straight and you have to communicate a lot.
Yeah.
You have to do a lot of communicating, talk a lot, find out your likes, your dislikes, find out what the G spot or the sweet spot, whatever, Put your cards on the table now. You have to put your cards.
Lay all the cards out, yes, man.
And not only when you're going and do it, but while you're doing it, you have to find out if let she enjoy it, you enjoy it. Because,
right.
God say He that find it a wife, find it a good thing, right?
Amen.
If God say if I find a good thing, then when I'm making love or when you're having sex, you're supposed to enjoy it. So at that time it's supposed to be a good thing. So it's something you're supposed to put all your effort into. I mean, so basically that is it. It's like a car. Just as how a car needs servicing, you gotta clean all the effort.
Apples had a compliment.
I like that one.
The apples compliment.
But to add what Kakala said, communication just does not mean verbal, right? Because women, we give you all cues in better, sometimes you just have to pick up on those cues because you're doing something and you see no reaction. Where partners move on and you're going to saw the spot and continue till you get a hole. No, move on. She's telling you non-verbally that is not the spot. Try again. So don't let's look for those. Sometimes, yes, the verbal is nice, but also look for those little non-verbal cues.
Lovely.
Yes.
And then something to top it off too. Like during the day, or you might be at home, and I mean your wife in the kitchen, she might be cooking, you on your bed, you lay down. I mean, come out and help she. Help she if we're doing baby, and help she do something in the kitchen, help she wash up the wares, and that just kind of turn them on too. So then when you actually go to, you just get extra.
You will get some non-verbal communication that might be some songs instead.
It's like when you don't eat your food, you just get dessert. So
what people let us do it.
Charlene.
I don't need to talk. Let Melina Johann talk, and I think I will because I tell you, Carlos, the information that needs to come out. All right.
So Mel, over to you there. I mean, you got a mouthful of advice there for someone that might be coming in with different expectation or experience. What about you? I mean, what advice would you give
right now? I'm
to individuals coming in?
Yes, family, like what Carlos said. But I mean, okay, to add to that, you see, coming into marriage, let's be real. Sometimes you have persons coming into marriage as virgins. Sometimes you have persons coming into marriage with vast sexual experiences. Sometimes you have persons coming into marriage with traumatic experiences. They may have experienced whether someone would have touched them, situation. Something negative, correct. A negative situation. And all of these things impact on your sexuality in marriage and how you react. So Apple said earlier, the whole face wash that she got, which was tongue kissing, affected her in such a way that she didn't want to do that with her husband until they would have gotten to their place together, and now it's different. So coming in with different experiences or expectations, to me the main thing is communication. You can't come in to marriage, well, we should not come into marriage with secrets or hiding things. We should have open communication. And open communication is not just about where we want to live, what kind of house we want, how much children we want. It's not just about that. It's also about what experiences we may have had, we may not have had, and start the conversation. So having different experiences, then now as a couple, we can work it through together. And in working it through together, it might be experiences or expectations because of what you would have experienced in your past as classical conditioning. You now coming into marriage expecting, well, all women could do X, Y, and Z, or all men will treat me like this. So it's about communication and working through it together. When you work through it together, you can now take it step by step and find what's best for you. So finding what's best for you as a couple may be what one of you would have done in the past, or it may be something totally different where you create your own niche and you grow together and have a wonderful sexual experience together.
Awesome. Shahin, anything here?
Well, with everything that they mentioned there, as they talk about discussing and communicating, one of the things we need to remember even with that is no judging.
Correct.
Because there's some persons who might not appreciate or might be shocked based on their past background or experiences, might seem a little flustered by what you said. But what it is they need to remember is that this is someone that God has given to you. This is your lifelong partner. So whatever they're sharing with you means that they're putting themselves in a vulnerable position to let you know how they feel. So you have to pray and allow God to intercede that whatever they tell you is because they love and trust that you will take this information and you will use it in the appropriate manner. So do not judge.
And don't weaponize.
Correct. I'm not going to say that. Yeah, Apples.
Yeah, go ahead, Apples.
And I was just adding to what Sister Charlene said and said, don't weaponize it after. Don't use the
Yes.
information and weaponize it.
Excellent. You know, for me, I would say I want to connect with something that Carlos said in the beginning, where Carlos started out very spiritual, huh? And I was saying, yeah, like praying over the thing. But I want to go back there, because there's persons don't connect God and sex, and they think it's too parallel. Well, it's two polar opposite. That once there's God, it is holy, and I can't talk about sex and God. When I'm having sex with my wife, God is hiding His face. You know, that kind of mentality, and
I used to think that.
we kind of separate the two. God created sex.
The New Testament has the exact words where He says, "Marriage bed is undefiled."
Exactly. Now, the challenge here is that, and I will look at coming into marriage with different experience. There's also times you come into marriage with some unhealthy experience, and you project that and think, well, my spouse now need to meet these needs, and that's what connects back with what Carl said about God. There are some things we gotta allow God to remove from us, especially if we come in with different experiences. You may come into marriage and you've probably been educated from pornography, and you're bringing in some of the things that you've learned in pornography or different things. Even in a Christian marriage, it's amazing the amount of Christian marriages that is still affected by things like pornography, unhealthy fantasies, and so forth. You bring that into marriage now, you expect your spouse to meet these unhealthy practices that you may have in your mind, and it's an unfair, your spouse can't meet those needs, especially when you're trying to foster a good sexual experience within your marriage. So that's one of the things I would say. Don't think that God in somewhere is not connected with this. It's important for you to recognize that your spouse is a gift from God. God wants you to have a great sexual experience, but there's some things you've got to be able to put aside and recognize that the pasture is really green where you water it. If you water your sexual experience, you water your marriage, all the things you hear that people are talking about, the single people so-called talking about, you could have that and more, especially where there is no guilt, shame, as Apples talk about weaponizing and so on. You could, every day could be a better experience, where people are thinking the longer you're together that the sex gets monotonous. No, you could get better experience every single day as you learn more about your spouse. You're able to trust them more. And Carlos just dropped so much knowledge in terms of doing things for your spouse, helping to clean up. There's nothing that turns on a woman that recognizing that, how much to do. Like, what do I do with my time? I'm sure you could help her know something to do with your time. Come take care of me. I've taken care of the dishes is taken care of. The place is sorted out. Now let you wash up something else, but it's all about recognizing that you can put those things aside and enjoy each other. How important it is for you to have a healthy mentality towards sexual intimacy in marriage. I know I started touching on this, Charlie, but is there anything that stands out to you about this question?
We need to remember that this allows both persons to be emotionally vulnerable. So when it is you're discussing healthy, we're talking about being vulnerable, because most persons think vulnerable is a negative thing. But in marriage, vulnerable is a sacred bonding experience with both persons, because no one should know you more than your spouse. You might be thinking, but my parents know me, my siblings know me, but trust me, there are things about you that no one will ever understand or truly comprehend outside of your spouse. So this healthy experience that you're going to have is being emotionally vulnerable with your spouse. And by going through this experience, it strengthens that relationship, strengthens that bond. You become so tight that you could begin to read each other's mind. it just becomes so much easier, because we take it for granted how much communication is important to a marriage. We assume that we don't really have to talk, and if we talk, we don't have to become deep. But if you can't become deep with your spouse, who else is going to be deep? Because as I told someone recently, if it is that you're not vulnerable with your spouse, the devil is going to make room for you to be vulnerable with someone else. So make sure, take that into consideration when it is you're communicating.
All right. Anyone who would like to go as it relates to this question?
How important is it to have healthy mentality towards sexual intimacy?
I think that it is critical. Charlene spoke about being vulnerable in terms of having a healthy mentality towards intimacy. I was thinking about it a little bit different, and I was thinking about it from the angle of when I am at work and I'm stressed out and I come home to my wife, I must be able to share with her some of the things that would have happened, or all the things that would have happened, but it helps me to relax. It helps the stresses that I would have gone through during that day. It helps me to relieve that stress in terms of discussions and talking with her. And we walking through the house and she is leaning up against the cupboard and I'm seeing a posterior poking out and, I want to touch it when I pass in or poker or something like that, that kind of thing. So, however, if I bring home the stress with me and I don't talk about it,
You would notice.
I wouldn't notice anything. Because my mind will be, and that's how I am. My mind will be on work. If it was a real stressful day, real worries, real situation, and I had to bring work home and all that kind of stuff, and Melly is in a particular mood, at that point in time, I'm like, my mind on work. So in that kind of vibe, with that sort of mentality, to me, that is not a healthy mentality. And we would have gone through this phase many times early in our relationship, because what it would have done is that it would have either eliminated or reduced the level of intimacy within the marriage, right? I hope you understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So how we were able to get over that was, one, Carlos indicated it first. It was where we had to realize, or where I had to realize that, hey, the center of this is God. We can't do this without him. And then from his word, I would have seen from Songs of Solomon, from Proverbs, from Genesis, from Hebrews, different things that would have dealt with the fact, or would have showed me different things regarding how I'm supposed to treat Melly. When I started to look at myself and review that, and she would also, and then I also look at her. Now, sometimes role models are good. And one of the role models I used to watch at was her parents, how they used to move. And to me, despite whatever went wrong, the mentality when they reached home together was that they were always in contact with each other. They were always laughing, getting jokes. They were so happy to see each other. They were so comfortable around each other that the stress just went out. And when we started doing the same thing, the stress disappeared. So it might take an hour to be relieved in terms of us just liming, talking about how the day was.
Sometimes while doing chores.
Yeah. But when you feel that release now, or that relief, your mind now switches to other things. Because now your mentality is where it's supposed to be regarding your relationship with your wife. And from that, then the intimacy aspect of it begins to step in, where you're hugging up, you're all talking, even though you're still all talking, but you're hugging up. You might go for a walk somewhere, or you might jump in the car and take a drive somewhere. When you come back home, it's because you go to take a bath, and well, you know what's going on after that.
You're clean.
Right? So those are the kind of things I would have looked at when I was thinking about the healthy mentality, in that the stresses of life sometimes weigh us down so much that it is, when you bring it home, it's really unhealthy, and it affects you. And I think that is a ploy of the devil, where that can affect you in a major way. And I mean, we all know he does not like families, because there's strength there. And when a family is united, they could do a lot together as compared to an individual.
Facts.
Right? Or a lot more together, if you want to put it that way. So
Excellent. I would like to give the Carlos and Apples an opportunity. Is there anything that comes to mind to you as it relates to, just having a healthy approach to your intimacy in marriage and so on?
In connection to what Barrow said, that was along the line, one of the points that I had, your stresses. But the other point I also wanted to bring forward was where you get advice from. You have people's advice confusing your mental space, so you no longer, or you start to compare in your mind things you hear. I remember somebody from church indicated to me, I think we were, I don't it could have been between the first 2 years of marriage, and the person said sometimes you just have to use your mind and fantasize about other things to get where you need to go. I'm like, I'm young and this is the advice you just give, and that messed me up for a while. And I'm like, so I'm supposed to be with him. I know I'm supposed to fantasize about Jason Momoa or Will Smith or one of them. So I'm bringing these men mentally to my bedroom. What am I supposed to do with that information as somebody who's older in church gave to me? So I had to eventually put up a barrier and protect my mental space, especially when it comes to my marriage and my bedroom. Even I remember when we had convention in the district and we had this session, Ask Pastor, and I'm there asking, listening to questions about salvation and all these things. And then one person asked a question on sex, and the rest of the evening was on sex. And I'm realizing, as Christians, some of us are just out here having sex and not having sex, making love, Because if you have to ask your pastor permission to do stuff in the bedroom, it's basically come in there and narrate what's supposed to happen, right? So all of that is protecting your space. Why should we? I'm not saying don't seek advice, but it shouldn't come to the point where if my husband wants to nibble my ears, I have to ask Pastor, should my husband nibble my ears? Am I going to go to hell for that? So all of this, I don't know, is part of protecting my mental space and even taking that kind of pressure into the bedroom. So yeah, I have to say about that.
All right, thank you so much.
That was actually excellent advice.
That is, excellent advice. It tells you, especially as we go look into this direction of enjoying sex in marriage, you're going to get information from all directions, and you heard a lot tonight. One of the things you would hear that came from Johann is that the devil don't want you to have a healthy marriage. The devil, one of the first institutions that God put together and sanctified was marriage. So there's no coincidence that marriages are falling apart left, right, and center. We are saying to you that you can have the type of sexual intimacy that you need in your marriage, but you would recognize that there's also a spiritual part to that. Your spirituality and your sexual enjoyment is not something that is opposite to each other. God wants you to have a great sexual experience together, but one don't work without the other. You also need to be a great person. You want to be a great spouse for your partner. You want to be able to look out for your partner. Carlos shared it, clean up for your partner, wash some of the dishes. If they come home tired, have them relax and do something for them. It's one don't work without the other. You can't expect to have a great sexual experience or great intimacy and you're not loving each other in the way that God expects you to love each other. As you do that, and as you can share, Charlene talk about being vulnerable with each other, You want to talk about being able to come home and to get your stresses off or so forth. And once you do, you start seeing the posterior. And I could attest to that, very much so. You know, as we close off, Charlene, I mean, there's so much you could pack from this. Is there any thoughts from you as we look to close off?
I just want to say we need to have a part 2.
I can second.
Yeah, I think we need a part 2 because this topic is so important, because it's something we fail to discuss in the church, outside of church, because we take it granted what the value of sexual intimacy in marriage, and that sex in marriage can be great. Don't listen to people. Hello, you don't have to worry about somebody come knocking in the door, somebody come to see what you're doing, you get videotape and say, look, you're with somebody man or somebody woman, or you're sneaking somewhere. When you hug up your spouse and you're having sex, you don't have to worry about no time and no space or no nothing. And you could free up yourself and do things you didn't think you could do, positions you didn't think you could do. I mean, we don't talk about these things.
Like confession.
My mother, my aunt, I will bring in this last part because I know some women don't like to hear it. When it's nighttime and you're a little tired and thing, yeah? And the man needs some release. My mother, my aunt, and I were having this conversation. And you know what we said? Just cook a little to the side. Let the man get some excitement. You sleep, he sleep. The next day he'll be the best person ever. You're getting through anything because it's so relaxing to have. Yeah, you know what? And Joshua, good advice. No, but I mean, we need to give healthy, good advice. People need to understand.
It goes both ways.
Yeah, the compromise.
Even though we're talking here,
It goes both ways.
it's in, and we want to endorse this. We do want to share some spiritual texts, even though we're talking about sex in marriage. The Bible speaks a lot about how to really have a great marriage, and by having a great marriage, you will have great intimacy. Charlene shared the scripture text taken from Proverbs chapter 5, verse 15 to 19. So I'm going to let her read this.
Drink water from your own well. Share your love only with your wife. Why spill the water of your springs in the streets? Having sex with just anyone? You should reserve it for yourselves. Never share it with strangers. Let your wife be a fountain of blessing for you. Rejoice in the wife of your youth. She is a loving deer, a graceful doe. Let her breast satisfy you always. May you always be captivated by her love.
All right, and Barrows did share a scripted text taken from Song of Solomon, chapter 7, verses 6 to 9. So I'll let any one of them would read it as I put it on the screen.
How fair and how pleasant you are. See, I don't have on my glasses. Oh, love with your delight.
This statue of yours is like a palm tree, and your breasts like its clusters.
Me?
I will go up to the palm tree. I will take hold of its branches. The fragrance of your breath like apples, and the roof of your mouth like the best wine.
See, people,
Non-alcoholic.
this is coming from the Bible, huh? We didn't take that from some book written somewhere. This is from the Bible. And Carlos and Apples did share one scripture text. Any one of you could just read it.
And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed.
They were not ashamed of each other. I thank you so much. I mean, we have so much more to unpack with this topic. They were just getting warmed up, you know. Carlos, as he started to get in, I had to step back and just let him go. I want to say thank you to Carlos and Apples for coming out and sharing in this topic. Thank you to Johann and Mel in terms of just sharing some of their experience, as well as thank you so much, Charlene, for picking this topic. It's something that we know needs to be talked about more. within marriages, within the church, and even outside of the church, so that persons recognize that marriage is a blessing. Even sex in marriage is a wonderful thing. Any closing thought?
Amen.
You want me to give more closing thoughts? I might get excited and start to talk about positions again. So
Yeah.
just want to thank people for watching. I hope you were blessed, and you also realize that being a Christian doesn't mean you have to have boring sex. The Bible says so. The Bible says enjoy, and you see how many times you heard the word breast. It means that God endorses sex.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, if you haven't liked this video, please make sure to subscribe and click that notification bell. So when we post more videos like this or go live, you will be notified. See you in the next one.
Bye, everyone.